In 1937, the German Reich's Air Ministry contracted Focke-Wulf Airplane Company to design an aircraft. The proposed aircraft was meant to unleash the Luftwaffe's combat air power during the darkest hours of World War II. It was a complete package of technological marvels and a bitter combat response. It was none other than the Focke-Wulf 190, which became a tough nut for the Allies to crack. Also known as the Butcher Bird, the FW-190 remained an enigmatic nightmare for its counterparts. What was its uphill struggle before becoming one of the highest performing aircraft of World War II? What was its combat role throughout the darkest hours of World War II? Let's check it out in this video. The Focke-Wulf 190, nicknamed Würger in German, was widely used in World War II. It's a single-seat, single-engine fighter designed by Kurt Tank at the Focke-Wulf in the late 1930s. Like many other countries, the German Luftwaffe started a modernization program in 1934 and 1935. The German Ministry of Aviation held a contest to produce an advanced fighter aircraft to rearm and upgrade the Luftwaffe. The first round was entered by Messerschmitt with the Bf-109, Oredo with AR-80, Heinkel with HE-112, and Focke-Wulf with FW-159. Oredo and Focke-Wulf did not pan out and were knocked out of the competition. Bf-109, however, took the crown. But the modernization program was still ongoing. The Luftwaffe, however, wanted another fighter plane along with the Bf-109. Thus, in 1937, a new contest was announced. Focke-Wulf broke the mold this time, and Kurt Tank developed several new ideas powered mainly by liquid-cooled radial engines. In the developed prototypes, Tank wanted something exceptional other than high speed, so it could surpass its counterpart Bf-109. The Aviation Ministry was not impressed, and Tank had to fight a battle to convince them of the radial engine's merits. The rejection solely revolved around the idea that using radial engines in land-based fighters was relatively rare in Europe, as their large frontal area would cause too much drag on the tiny fighter. Another drawback with the radial engines was their exposure to overheating. Tank knew that the U.S. Navy had already used radial engines with proper installation. Eventually, Tank's team worked out a solution against overheating. The design used the BMW-139 radial engine right off the bat. The FW-190 used the most modern features of that time. Its very wide-track landing gear made it sturdier and more stable than the Bf-109, which successfully cut the mustard and was well adopted by the pilots. The FW-190 was predominantly a day fighter, but could also be used as a fighter bomber, ground attack aircraft, and night fighter. With its exceptional maneuverability and capacity to carry heavy armament, the FW-190 became an excellent choice for air-to-air combat during the mid-war period. The first version had a top speed of 410 miles and a ceiling of 35,000 feet. Despite several merits, the fighter had a few limitations, including its compromised performance at higher altitudes. At 20,000 feet and above, it could not effectively perform its operations. The engineers brainstormed ideas again and finally devised a solution that addressed this performance issue with the turbo-supercharged BMW 801 engine. The BMW 801 was much more powerful than the 139 and similar in diameter, but much heavier and longer, thus needing a more extensive airframe. Consequently, most of the initial prototypes were abandoned, and the V5 became the first one featuring the new, bigger engine. The modified airframe also solved the overheating problem and provided enough space for armaments in the nose. The Messerschmitt 109 and British Spitfire were its contemporaries. The latter's armaments were added as an afterthought in upgrades, because first priority was given to accommodate its powerful engine and compact airframe, leaving a limited space for weaponry. As per Tank's opinion, both fighters were like racehorses, requiring proper pampering and proper operation conditions, and they could outrun anything. However, Once the going got tough, they were liable to falter. Therefore, an entirely new breed of fighter was needed that could work in the harsh war environment and operate from every type of ill-prepared airfield. Moreover, an aircraft was needed that would not require specially trained pilots and could absorb significant damage. Tank did not want a racehorse, but a Dine Stepford, a cavalry horse. As one of the most successful aircraft during World War II, some of the Luftwaffe's most dominant fighter pilots claimed many high-profile targets while flying it, including Otto Kittel, Walter Nowotny, and Erich Rudorfer. The FW-190 had greater firepower than the Bf-109 and superior maneuverability in low to medium altitudes. As a result, it was ranked as one of the best fighter planes in World War II. Moreover, the FW-190 successfully maintained its superiority over the Royal Air Force Allied fighters. In December 1942, it debuted in its first air combat on the Eastern Front and stood tall amongst other fighter wings and ground attack units. With time, the Focke-Wulf tested several prototypes, and despite its several plus points, every test fight experienced engine problems. It ultimately became a tough nut to crack. Thus, Focke-Wulf produced more than 30 variants. The low performance at high altitudes was not initially a problem, but later in the war, when the air battles were fought, the Focke-Wulf needed modifications. The designer, Kurt Tank, addressed the fighter's performance deficiencies by fitting the machine with a powerful Junkers Jumo 213 inline liquid-cooled engine. The result was the FW-190D, which took to air from 1943 to 1944, with a top speed of 440 miles per hour and could accommodate 2 coaling-mounted machine guns and a pair of 20mm cannons in the wing roots. The FW-190D responded better to the Allied opponents, but more needed to be produced. Meanwhile, the Luftwaffe introduced the FW-190F and 190G, which became their standard fighter bombers for ground attacks. Both variants had additional armored protection and could carry 4,000 pounds bombs. They were also used as night fighters, using conventional daylight methods to attack British Royal Air Force heavy bombers. These tactics earned them the nickname Wild Boar. But they needed a high level of piloting skills and limited ability to cope with harsh winter environments. The final variant of the G-Series model was produced in large numbers and was designed as a long-range fighter. When it appeared on the Western Front in August 1941, the 190 proved to be a resilient fighter. The Allies were unaware of the new German aircraft with radial engines. No Allied aircraft could beat the 190 at lower altitude, which gave the Germans air superiority over Western Europe. The Butcher Bird was used throughout the war and on every front that German troops were involved in. It's often considered equivalent to or even better in performance than the P-51 Mustang. Being a jack of all trades, it was the cream of the crop for serving in bomber interception, ground attack, and fighter missions. To counter the Allied bombers over Germany, the 190s were modified into anti-bomber operations. With huge room for the armament, the new versions were heavier and less maneuverable. Due to its wide-track landing gear, the aircraft performed better in the muddy airfields on the Western Front. Its resilient structure enabled it to bear more damage. Even during 1944, to cope with American and British bombing, the FW-190 pilots used to line up behind the formation and open fire all at once, making it hard for gunners to target any single one. Apart from Germany, other countries that used the 190 were Turkey, which used 72 FW-190 during World War II. In the immediate post-war period, 65 FW-190s were built at the Camp 918 facility in France. Besides this, Romania captured and operated 22 FW-190s in 1944 during an anti-Axis rebellion. In 1943, a single FW-190 was supplied to Japan for evaluation, receiving the Allied code Fred. In addition, several FW-190s were captured and used by the Soviets. Its low-altitude performance and enhanced armor capability enabled it to gain control over the air against Soviet planes. As a countermeasure, the Red Air Force later enhanced its capabilities, and more advanced Soviet aircraft appeared. Eventually, the 190's advantage started fading away. Whatever the case, this marvel's legacy could not be weathered out. Its retractable landing gear set the standard for modern aviation models, including Messerschmitt Me 626, F-86, and MiG-15. Conclusively, the design and features of the FW-190 remained unbeatable in its times. Though many aircraft were developed under the spell of this butcher bird, they could not reach the success that the FW-190 showed during the haunting times of war. What are your thoughts on the role of FW-190 in aviation during and after the war? Let us know in the comment section. Stay tuned for the next video.